everyone. Welcome to the webinar series. We're here in February, and thank you for joining on a Sunday evening. I know you could be doing 100 of different things right now and more important things, but you chose to be here, and we really appreciate it. So we'll got really excited today to have you and also have our very distinguished friend and a guest we will feature shortly. But for those who don't know what we do and who we are, want to give a few, brief introduction of Staggered Equity, and then we will, get right onto the feature of the day today. So basically, we will go over Staggered Equity intro, some portfolio highlights like we like to do for those folks that have come to know us recently. And Reshma will introduce our guest speaker here, Nischal Baskota, and then we'll open up for any questions that you might have for Nish or ourselves as well. Some of you we've met before, some of you we may not have, but we're founded by, the Staggered Equity was founded by myself and Reshma in Charlotte. Our vision is to make real estate and other asset types available, accessible for people that would like to, grow their wealth and be in the knowledge and, learn and grow. We're committed to helping generate, generational wealth through investments. And in that, we also want you to kind of share the journey with you through investments with us or by inviting us to your investments or sharing stories. So we have a robust network of experienced professionals, which some of we have featured in this webinar in over time. The way we kind of try to bring assets is by locating them first. We look for opportunities that have potential, really upside potentials that may be underrepresented, that may be undervalued, or are niche in certain areas that may not be mainstream. You may not find them on Yahoo Finance or other sources that you normally would find these deals in. We do asset or company valuation analysis. We do diligence. We put in, Reshma and I lead that effort, but we're not experts in everything, right? So we invite people, we add team members that, provide or bring expertise in some of those fields. For example, we're now currently evaluating a fintech company, a bank, actually a neobank, based in Northeast here. And we don't have experience in banking. I mean, Reshma does, but not on the valuation side. So we're bringing in some external help to see and do the diligence on. We do advisory and management. For example, for one of the fintech startups that we're working with, we're providing them with fundraising support and also management consulting. Our approach is to increase value in the companies or assets or through advisory for companies that we invest in. And then, finally, there's always an exit strategy for wherever we invest. I think I've covered most of this on how we do it. We're seeking equity through our investment or our participation. Like I said, we collaborate with experienced team members and bring people that are fit for the job, whatever the job might be. We'll find people that are experienced in that area. We try to raise capital or find our own capital. There's one kind of philosophy we stand by. When we raise fund for a company or when we ask our investor pool to invest in something, we will first be the leaders in investing. So we will not ask you for investment or support if we are not as staggered invested in that company. So that's our kind of core philosophy that we stand by. So far, maybe Reshma, do you want to take maybe a stab at our current portfolio? What are we working on? And then maybe transition to introducing Nish.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do that. So thank you everyone for joining and, being here on Sunday night. this was something that I think most people here were looking forward to. Nish is, I mean, overnight sensation, which took 8 years to build. But I know that a lot of people today are here just to hear him talk. So without, taking much of your time, I'll just give you an overview of what Staggered is today. So we, between our partners and JV deals, have close to 65 million now. It's probably is $100 million worth of
It is
asset under
100. Sorry, we need to
management.
update that. Yes, go ahead.
And we have close to 300 units under management. We have now a diversified asset class. We did start our company as a real estate company, but now we have started venturing out to new ideas. We have invested in fintech, retail, and other startups that we partner with, not just the founders, but the whole team. We also do consulting, as Prab mentioned, so that we are not just, investing in a company, but also helping them grow. And we do invest in the company that we recommend to everyone to invest.
Not
Let's
here?
go on.
Huh.
Background noise that I'm
Thank
hearing. If you're not speaking, please keep yourself on mute. Okay, so this is something in terms of our real estate portfolio. We have Church and Flint over in Greensboro. We are involved in Julia Deal, Delcrest. We are very proud to be part of Nepal Tea Collective, and now we are venturing out to Zuno, which is a fintech company, and aspire to be a global neobank. Okay. For our 2025 venture, we are looking for a new equity partnership for our real estate and our fintech and other venture deals. We are working on green finance and climate finance, which I think is the pressing topic now. And for everyone who looks for like more secure type of investments, we are planning on introducing diaspora bonds. And for everyone who has, risk appetite and looking for more of startup opportunities, we will be bringing you some fintech ventures this year. All right. So a little bit about Nischal, right? I don't think he needs any introduction, but even, most people here know him. I just wanted to mention that he is a second generation tea grower who inspires everyone today as an entrepreneur, young entrepreneur who wants to introduce Nepal's tea globally. He recently had and I'm gonna screw this up, Tea Leaf Award, which is Oscars for tea, which is amazing and not that I know much of. But we're gonna play a small video here, so something about Nepal Tea Collective that's interesting.
Do you hear the sound?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Prab. I hope you find that video interesting. So without further delay, Nischal, you're on.
Perfect. Thank you, Reshma. Thank you, Prab. And thanks everybody for being here. Yeah, that video though, it didn't quite play as well. I'm just gonna put a link through there so that you can refer to it later on. But yeah, basically with that, I think it really describes essentially, just what we are all about. And so I think when you get a chance, do look at it over. It has no sound, it has no voices, no words, but it actually reflects the entire journey of what we've been trying to accomplish for the last 8 years. So just to kind of set the scene as well, uh, we're almost 25 people here. How many of us drink tea on a daily basis here? You can just put, yes, me, one, whatever, in the chat so that we have an understanding. But yeah, feel free to just put that on the chat. Maybe it's like we should say, who doesn't drink tea? Maybe that's an easier poll, but no, thanks. This just validates one most important thing that I wanted to convey was tea is actually the most popular drink in the world after water. There's almost 2.6 billion people that drink tea every single day, and they drink about 4 billion cups of tea every single day. That's how popular tea is globally. But one sad reality, and you can think of yourself as a consumer, is also we're drinking all of these tea. I'm seeing every single person here almost drinks tea once or twice a day. One of the challenge I'll tell you right away is how many of us, and let's really be honest, how many of us actually know where the teas are coming from, or the people that actually made those teas possible? If you know, you can just put it over there. But most of us, and I admit I am the same, I was the same way, where there wasn't much thought or thought I put into my everyday cup of tea. And I'm sure most of the consumers here, most of the consumers around the globe, not necessarily put thoughts into where it's coming from. Some people have wrote Darjeeling and Assam, very famous tea making places, but even then, not necessarily from which garden, which part of, and who are those real people that are actually making all of your teas. So one of the fundamental problems that I saw in the tea industry, and I'll get to that in a bit, but just to give you an idea of why tea and how I actually got into tea. Again, for me, it was not much of a choice, to be honest, because I was a second generation. I'm a second generation tea producer. My family has been producing organic teas for the past 42 years now. So I was actually born in a tea farm. So I knew a lot, not necessarily knew the insides and outs of all of the tea things, but I was always close to tea. But I had no interest in getting into the family business, no interest at whatsoever to get into the tea business. Again, that was me quite a while ago, about 8 years ago. But what I always wanted was I wanted to come to the US, which I did in 2011, and I wanted to become a CPA. I was really good at finance. I was really good at accounting, I thought, until I'm doing my own books and everything. So whatever. But one of the most important things is I really wanted to come to the US and kind of get into Wall Street and really, make a lot of money. That was my entire thesis of coming to the US. And long and behold, I get into this tiny liberal arts college, Colby Sawyer College, which is in New Hampshire. Most of you probably have not even heard about it. It's a tiny little college, just about 1,000 students. And I got there. One of the most interesting thing, and after 4 years of liberal arts college in the US, basically what happened was that liberal arts college education was able to kill the CPA dream that I had and make me a tea person and a tea businessman, essentially. But I actually don't regret that a bit, not a tiny bit, because those 4 years, one of the most important things that I learned in those 4 years of college was literally one thing. That one thing was basically, opportunities are really created where resources are scarce. I got into a lot of different colleges where, there was it was large colleges where I would assume there would be a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different things that I could get involved in. And had I gone to some of those larger colleges, I'm not sure if I would have done the same thing that I'm doing today. So what happened with the small little college was that there wasn't anything that I wanted to, wanted to. There wasn't big institutions or clubs or organizations, all of these different things that I wanted to get involved in. So it actually forced me to create something that I actually wanted, and that was my one of my primary stepping stones into creating stuff, creating things. We're able to create this project where we would build classrooms for the underprivileged children, take American students from our college back to Nepal, build some schools, and then come back and make a video and then tell them to fund us for the next year. They did that for almost 4 years. And we managed to go back to Nepal with college funds and create some of these different things, which is amazing to hear about. And one of the most important thing that happened was today that same college provides a scholarship for one international Nepali student because of the work that we had done and that humble effort to create something, right? Um, so always wanted to kind of get into this, do something, create something. And once I finished college in 2016, Nepal was actually hit. Sorry, 2015, Nepal was hit with the largest earthquake, one of the largest earthquakes in Nepal. So what I was thinking about going back to banking, and that was essentially what I was prepping for. But it also gave me an opportunity to actually go back and help out. And that was the time that I really went to Nepal and understood, what was happening in the tea industry, essentially. That was the time when I was just there to volunteer, essentially. Volunteer for my family farms and other places that were hit really hard with the earthquake and the rehabilitation efforts. I was just trying to help out however I can. That time, what I understood fundamentally is that tea, and specifically Nepali teas, were never going to get an identity in the global market. What was happening at that point, and still to this date, actually, that happens, and it's many different countries have a similar kind of trajectory. But what was happening was a lot of the Nepali teas that were being exported was going into India, and it was being rebranded as Indian teas and sold all over the world. And I'm not saying it's it's a political issue or a socioeconomic issue among two countries. It was basic supply and demand issue at that point as well, and still today. A lot of people actually make it political, but no, I only see it as a very much of a demand and simple economics problem. So essentially, what I realized and seeing my farm where there were more than 400 farmers, the farmers were 30, 40 years ago, when my mom and dad, they started the farm in their backyard, they had this big vision of how can tea really create a community. And that vision was realized 30 years ago when this eastern part of Nepal in Pastar, there's this entire farm which runs on a cooperative model and has really allowed multiple, hundreds of farmers to get out of poverty. And that was such an amazing model of tea growing, which was not necessarily, it was not practiced many other places. So what I was able to do, and what I realized was even then, nobody was branding Nepali teas in the world. As people have mentioned here, Darjeeling had its own identity. Assamese teas had their own identity. Ceylon teas from Sri Lanka have their own identities. A lot of different countries play on their identity, and that's what creates a global market. Nepal never had that. And the reason, one of the most important reason for that was, again, 96% of all exports was going out to India, and it was rebranded as Indian teas and sold all over the world. While it might have made sense economics-wise previously, what it did not do was it did not give respect to the farmers because they were getting very, very low prices and not necessarily any kind of identity in the global market. So that was one problem to solve. And I thought maybe, just maybe, because we have a farm, maybe we can create a company that really trades and sells teas as Nepali teas. That was the humble effort of, how do we just create an identity? That was number one problem. The second problem, which is a global tea industry problem, was the supply chain is completely dominated by almost 7 to 8 middlemen, unwarranted middlemen, I should say, unwarranted middlemen that were creating little to no value in their entire supply chain. So there would be, by the time the teas was produced in the factory and by the time it got to the hands of the consumers, there's 7 to 8 different people or institutions that are exchanging hands in terms of tea and not necessarily creating much value. Because of that, the institutions in the middle were making a lot of money, but not necessarily the farmers. If you look at all of the tea producers, tea farmers all around the world, though tea, as I mentioned, is the most popular beverage in the world after water, farmers were living out of poverty. And that calculation did not make sense to me. How can a drink or a product become the world's, most popular beverage, and still the producers are living under poverty? It just did not make sense. And we were able to identify that the supply chain was kind of the problem, which has not been innovated in the last 200 years. It's the same exact method how teas pass through chains of middlemen and comes to the final consumer. So that two problems that I wanted to solve was, one was create a very traceable model of how teas from any single consumers can actually be able to trace their teas back to the farms. So traceability and transparency in the tea industry was number one priority. And second was obviously creating an identity of Nepali origin tea in the entire global tea market. So those were the two major problems. One was very specifically focused in terms of Nepal, and the other one was global tea supply chain, essentially. So I came back to the US in 2016, and that's when I started the company. I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew was it was easy to register a company in the US, and you could do it online through LegalZoom, and you could just do it in 5 minutes. And that's essentially what I did. Went on LegalZoom, started, put the name Nepal Tea, and then just put myself as the shareholder, and my brother and my sister. Basically created a company in 5 minutes, essentially. I think that was the easy part. The most difficult part came when now I actually had to import stuff. I need something to sell. So without knowing much, and I think one of my strengths and my weakness to an extent is that, I really don't hesitate in taking the first steps. I can just take action I don't do too much research, essentially, to put it bluntly, where, if I have a strong conviction on something, I just do it. So essentially created the company, and then a first shipment of 300 kilos, which is about 650 pounds of tea. I brought it without necessarily thinking much. I just brought it. And the most important part was clearing customs, because at that time I was funding the entire thing with literally my credit cards, and I had $200 in my bank account. So complete bootstrapped. So essentially got those 600 pounds of tea, did not even have the money to actually, hire a broker who would actually clear the customs and the FDA for me. So I had about 2 days worth of time that the officer gave me. Otherwise, I would be charged almost $500 a day to just for the storage. So I had to do something. So I read the whole book about how to custom clear and clear the FDA and all of that stuff. And I was able to, thankfully, was able to clear that 600 pounds of tea and brought it to the market in the US. Got that, started selling, and it was not that easy, obviously. But one of the initial tractions that I started getting was a lot of the people, and it validated my early problem or my hypothesis was where a lot of the customers, larger tea customers, wholesalers, who were buying teas from our very own farms, were not necessarily getting the quality that they were getting at and at the prices. So when I come into the picture representing my family farm, it was better price for them and at the same time better quality and a very wide network of traceability and transparency. So got my few first customers, and then after that, it was for almost 5 years. And just in the start of COVID, I thought I was out of business. The first day, I should say, March, I believe, 2021, we had almost about 100 something customers, mainly wholesale part of the business, and wholesale meaning selling it to tea companies, tea bars, coffee shops, all of that. So that was the primary business at that point. And COVID happened. All of a sudden, every single of those tea shops and coffee shops and everything was shut down. And I lost pretty much 80% of the business overnight. And I thought, okay, done and dusted. This is kind of the fate of, what was going to happen. And so I was pretty much, I had already given up. But one thing that held me was how I had essentially started at least an e-commerce site for my teas. So obviously, I was selling to a lot of B2B, but then on the side, since the start of the day, I had created a website myself. It's very easy to create a website these days, obviously, and even at that time. So I just created a website, put my products there and all of that stuff. And the e-commerce during COVID, and because tea is considered food in the US, got me a lucky break. And we really tripled our e-commerce revenue during COVID, which really allowed us to sustain at that point. And that is essentially where I got my validation that, whatever we built, it actually can become quite big. And that was also my validation in terms of, hey, it is not going to work if I'm just going to be a one-person company trying to build this business just by myself. And it was just not going to work. With that validation, what I was able to do was my nephew, who is just a few years younger than me, he was working in Wall Street again. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just do this. Quit your Wall Street job. So Pratik, my co-founder, now he came into the business, and one of the things that happened right after he came back was we doubled the business in the next year. And that got me my blueprint of finding the right people in the business really allows you to scale in the most, in the most interesting and unimaginable ways. So Pratik and I, two people team, we doubled the business, and at that time we were just doing close to only about $250,000 in revenue, barely breaking even, and it was just time for us to really scale. And then my best friend from grade one, actually, he finished his, he had a startup in Nepal, and he went to London School of Economics for his master's, and then he was able to come. He was always guiding me, but at the same time, it was time for my third co-founder, who really understood business, understood scaling, understood fundraising, to come into the picture. And with him, when he came into the business as my third co-founder, what ended up happening was we really were able to take it to the next level. And that next level really was where we were able to not just strengthen our relationships with the wholesale part of the business, but really dive deep into the e-commerce side of the business. So currently, almost 70% of the business is still B2B, and about 30% started to become e-commerce through Amazon and just our own websites. But one thing, fundamentally, what we again, fundraising, and is when people think about fundraising, and to this day, startup fundraising is very much of a glorious term, and entrepreneurs or people, startup founders, are almost known in this day and age by the amount of money that they've raised. And I was not necessarily made of that mold, so I kind of wanted to do things a little differently. From the get-go, when I was starting my company in 2017, when I told you I had just about $200 in my bank account, the only way I could sustain the business was through crowdfunding. I has always been passionate about how it's not just one or two big investors that make up a business, but it's always the community that really drives any business, and community as a customers, as investors. That's the route that I wanted to take. So I started doing in 2017, I had done a small little fundraise, which was through Kickstarter. So it's basically where you just it's almost like pre-ordering, where you just put up a website. You can still find it in kickstarter.com, where you just put out a video and say, hey, I'm doing this, and if you give me $10, I'm going to give you a packet of tea 6 months from today. If you give me $20, I'm going to give you 2 packets of tea, all of that stuff. And interestingly enough, I found my first customers and my first investors in 2017 when I did that Kickstarter campaign. I was raising just about $30,000. And thankfully, a lot of the people, a lot of strangers believed in me, and I was able to raise close to $50,000 in 30 days, and from 484 backers. And those 484 backers are still to this date consumers, some are investors, and really have become the cheerleaders for the company itself. With that community model always in place, one of the things that I wanted to do in 2022 was really to fundraise and give them, who were my early supporters, an opportunity to invest in the company. And that is when I found out about, equity crowdfunding, which is a very different path than traditional investments, which is any people around the world. There's a few country exceptions of few countries, but anyone around the world can invest with as little as $100. And again, obviously, it's going to be through a third-party platform. We used wefunder.com, and I can go on to that if you have any questions on that. But we essentially decided that we want to be able to give all of our supporters, all of our consumers, all of our customers an opportunity to actually invest in the company. And that was, we did that. We were able to raise about $600,000 through that campaign. And there were 182 investors, including Staggered Equity investments, and people ranging from the check sizes ranged from $100,000 to literally $250. And that also gives an idea of how different the fundraising landscape has become to this date, and there's so many different opportunities now. With all of that, I think one of the most important things that we have done, and the one thing that you probably had seen on the in the video that we played, was we're actually a public benefit corporation. And again, that is a legal term; it's a mouthful, but again, essentially what it means is it is a corporation, a for-profit company, 100%, but with one social mission. And for us, that is really to get 1 million farmers out of poverty within their generation and within my lifetime. And I have no idea how to measure that. I have no idea when I'm going to get to that 1 million farmers impacted or gotten themselves out of poverty, but that is our North Star. And that really defines how we are going to work to create a better system, better supply chain, better ways of creating a business. So again, a for-profit company, but with a social mission of getting 1 million farmers out of poverty. And that remains the core mission of the company itself. And that what it has really allowed us to do is, while obviously there's very much of a difficulty in balancing a lot more of that profit side of business versus the social impact side of the business, but at the same time, that struggle amongst myself, amongst our team, really allows you to think not once, not twice, but 3 times about the decisions that you want to take, because obviously it is for profit, but at the same time, there are people's lives that are involved that we really want to change. And with that, one of the most important things that we were able to do is take our family farms model to an extent and be able to replicate that to other farms. And interestingly enough, last year has been very, very amazing and crucial to us, because we increased our, and again, not just to increase it, but we were able to do quite a few things. A few most important things that we were able to do, again, with the fundraising and the team that we have now, is we're now the dream that started with one person in 2016. Now the dream is shared by 41 team members. So we have 41 team members. We have offices in the US, in Hoboken, New Jersey. We have a small warehouse and an office, while we have a full-fledged pseudo fulfillment center and an office and warehouse in Nepal itself. And there's more than 37 people actually working there. And the best part is all of these are young people. Most of them are Gen Zs who are getting into this business, which is amazing to see, because they are the ones who are running the entire company from Nepal. And that also showcases how we've been able to create a very efficient model and really an impactful model in the business line itself. Few things we've kind of done interestingly and has really created a unique identity for us is we've partnered with, in Nepal, we've partnered with a boutique hotel to open tea bars to elevate tea. A lot of the people, we only hear about tea when we think about tea, especially in the Asian community. When we think about tea, it's always the tea with, milk and sugar and, spices, all of that, chai or chia. That is the thing that comes to mind. But what Reshma was referring to earlier, the awards, that was for one of the teas that we produced. And it's only produced just about 10 kilos a year, so just about 22 pounds a year. And that is called Rose Label Reserve. It won the best, one of the best teas around the world. And that tea, that award was called the Leafies. It's considered the Oscars of tea. From that idea of, essentially trying to do 2 things, at least after 8 years, what we've been able to say is at least we've achieved those 2 big vision that we initially started the company with to an extent. One, again, was creating an identity for Nepali teas. We're proud today to say that we're actually the largest importers of Nepali teas in the United States. which really allows us to create that, which really tells you that we've really been able to create an identity. If anybody is getting teas from us, they know it's from Nepal, and we proudly say that. So we've been able to create that identity through that. Second is the awards. Have won 24 international tea awards that range from countries like Australia, France, the UK, US, and many different other countries, where they blindfoldedly judge more than 600 teas around the world. And these are veterans in the tea industry, tea masters judging all of these teas. And we've won, not just us, but the farms that have been producing all of these teas have won these prestigious international awards, which they were never even exposed to. That also tells us that we've been able to create that identity for the origin. And the second goal I mentioned to you early on was creating traceability and transparency into the tea supply chain. One of the most important things, and you might have seen in the video and might have noticed, might not, but yeah, I would really recommend you see that as well, where every single packet that you see on our packaging, you can scan the QR code and you will be able to see the entire journey of the tea from start to finish, when it was plucked, how it was plucked, what elevation, which cultivar, all of that amazing stuff, when it came to the factory, when it was packaged, when did it come to the US, all of that amazing stuff, along with the faces of the farmers, again, bringing that identity piece of the farmers together. And then you'll be able to see that. So when you're drinking that cup of tea, you can actually see who made that tea for you. And then the most important part, and which we are super proud of, is tipping the farmers directly. So with that QR code today, you can go on, scan that package, you'll see the entire journey, you'll see the complete traceability, transparency in that supply chain, and then you'll be able to tip the farmers directly as well. And that is a game changer. That is a game changer in so many different ways, because it allows that identity for the farmers, but at the same time, additional income. We've been tipping a lot of everybody here, right? We tip our barbers, we tip our baristas, we tip our cab drivers, everybody. But when we're drinking that cup of tea, nobody's even thinking about the farmers. And they are the ones who are actually making these products. So basically, it really creates an idea of really tipping and creating an income stream for the farmers. And again, it's a tiny amount at this point, but again, with wide adoption, which we hope we get, and which we hope other brands will copy this model, that they can actually tip the farmers directly. So that's how we increase the income of the farmers, number one. And the other way we do that is, as I mentioned, we're a public benefit corporation. So 1% of our top line revenue actually goes back to the farms every single year. So whatever we sell our teas from, we take all of that and give it back to the farmers and distribute it prorated to whatever they've sold us. And just to give you an example of how that is so impactful is just with 1% of revenue that we shared in 2023, out of 70 farmers were able to increase their daily wages by about 10%. Just that 1% share was able to do that. Just imagine when we have doubled, tripled the revenue, how much impact that's going to make. So those are kind of, I know it's a long way of talking and saying and sharing all of the things that we do, because we try to do too many things. And I think Reshma put it very well in the in the slide as well, where the lot of the things that I was going to talk about was balancing different things you do in business, wearing multiple different hats, because at the end of the day, it is so many things that you do when you're running a business. And I have not forgotten. I know I went on and on, but this is also about safe notes. So if you have any
briefly, Nish, because we do want to allow people to ask questions. So maybe in 3 minutes, if you can just help explain to our audience here what safes are and how you took advantage of it to raise funds, that would be ideal.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Again, I warned you, Reshma.
Yes,
if you don't stop me, I can go on and on. So anyway, so safe notes, the reason one of the, and for people who might not be familiar, safe note is basically just simple agreement for future equity. essentially investors and founders, what they're agreeing to is that, hey, the founders are going to give you shares in the next round, but just let's agree that you're going to get some shares in the next round, but let's just agree and have the funds right now. What this does, the simple agreement for future equity, is it was created by Y Combinator to really speed the process of fundraising, because raising funds is it can become a lengthy process in terms of negotiations, paperwork, lawyer fees, all of that crazy stuff, right? It can become a very long, time-consuming part of things. So what this eliminates is essentially, okay, we'll do that in the future, but let's just agree with a safe note. So essentially, there are a few different things and it's a very founder-friendly and flexibility for the investors as well in terms of safe notes. Essentially, why we chose this model specifically for us, and it applies to a lot of startups, is because safe notes are very founder-friendly in terms of valuation. And the reason for that is one of the largest or one of the biggest problems for any startup when they're raising funds is how to value your company. If you're already doing some revenues, it's easier. If you're not even doing, if you're pre-revenue, it's even a more daunting task to actually value yourself. This eliminates that because safe notes technically don't require any valuation. Essentially, we're saying that we have this valuation cap, which is the best part for the investors, where this is the cap. You cannot value the company more than this, but this is kind of like this cap of what we valued the company for. So it kind of postpones, does not necessarily cancel, but postpones the idea of valuation for a later time, which allows the flexibility in terms of investors' part, and also allows for easy, fast processing of.
And this is secure, right, Nish? It's secure. It's registered with. I mean, are there procedures in ACC where you'd have to be kind of, take care of the regulatory part here on SAFE?
Yes. So basically, even when it is basically actually an agreement between an instrument, essentially, which was created by Y Combinator, but valued very much. Again, it's a basically a written agreement from the founders and the investors. One of the risks and challenges, obviously, is you're really with investors. One of the things that you're really betting on is the success of the company itself. That is one little risky factor. But at the same time, as soon as one thing it doesn't do, it's a little different from convertible note, is only because it doesn't acquire any interest. There is no interest. That is kind of like the major difference from a convertible note, but convertible note is almost a similar thing. But one of the easier things, or the flexibility it offers to investors, is to really because to give you a quick example, somebody is valuing your company at, let's say, $5 million. And raising a safe note at $5 million cap. And so let's say the company does amazingly well, and the valuation in their next round is going to be $10 million. But the safe note protects the investors at that cap. So even if the founders are going on in their second round, next round, raising money at $10 million valuation, basically the valuation cap, which is agreed upon during the safe note, really protects the investors that even if you're raising funds at $10 million, we have agreed that for us, the valuation cap is going to be just $5 million. So that's the good case scenario if the business does good, right? Okay. There's also a flexibility option when the business might not do as good, right? So there's different ways you can set up the safe notes. One of the other ways is discounts. So basically, you can say, anybody who invests in the safe note is getting a 20% discount in the valuation. So what that does essentially is, let's say the business does not do as well. Let's say rather than $10 million in the next 2 years, the business is now valued even less than the valuation cap at, let's say, $4 million. even at that time, the obligation of the founder is to give the company to the investors at a 20% discount of what they were raising at.
Right.
So that creates a flexible valuation for the investors' part and gives, obviously there are definitely risks involved in terms of when that is going to convert, does it convert, all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it really creates a very flexible model for the investors and really creates a streamlined and simple model for the founders and easier paperwork and legal fees and all of that stuff.
Excellent.
So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I know that
There might be a lot
could
of
bring up a
questions
lot
on
of
that,
questions.
but yeah, but what we will do is, as Staggered Equity, we are finding investment opportunities with different instrumentation. So for those who are interested, please reach out. We will be probably bringing safe note experts and in the future, if that's of interest. I do want to point to a few questions that have been posted in the chat, Nish, if that's okay with you. The
Yes.
first question is by Rina. What was your biggest challenge when trading tea farm in Nepal to the US? And I would encourage you to be very brief because we have quite a few questions and I want to get to all of them. Thank you.
Identity, again, nobody knew. First of all, trying to convince people, first of all, telling them there's a country called Nepal. And then this small, tiny little country also produces some of the world's best tea because people had no idea. So education was kind of the biggest challenge, because when we were able to sample all of the teas, different origin together, people, loved it. People loved it. There was no question in terms of the quality. There was no question in terms of maybe a little bit in terms of pricing, because lower volume means a little higher cost. But at the same time, education was the most challenging stuff. In fact, we're still educating customers that all of that.
Yeah.
Yes, Didi.
Nish, I'm sorry. There's some noise there. Please type your questions in the chat box if you have any questions. But so what you were saying earlier was Nepalese tea were good. It's not that you made the tea better, but you brought into the light that those good teas come from Nepal or wherever, the farms. And then also because of that, there's associated brand value that was not being captured. We're being captured by the middlemen. Now you're capturing and giving it back to the communities and sharing that brand value. Excellent.
Yeah. And the other thing is, tea has always been treated as a commodity. What we are trying to say is, yes, there are different types, but the reason for the future of the tea as well, one of the things we need to realize is we are only consuming some of the mass-produced commercial teas. Tea is technically, they're as great and versatile as wine and whiskey. Whatever we're trying to do in the consumer side of space is really giving that identity as wine and whiskey as a premium beverage.
And I would encourage everyone to visit your website, learn about how tea is processed. I've been to Nish's farm and actually seen it all happen and so impressed. And I would encourage you to do that. Real quickly, the next question I have here, and we have a lot of questions trickling in.
Let me take the
Please go
first
ahead.
question that came in. So, Nish, as you know that, we are investment company, so people have question on investments, and where your company is today. So if you can brief us a little bit and tell us like your early investors, if they were to invest XYZ, if you can share how much will that be in your valuation today, and how did that work out for you?
So basically, we just the past round that we did was a $5 million valuation with our safe notes. And we're actually converting that safe note this year. So we are doing another round of investments as well. And so that is if anybody is interested in more on the specifics of that, you can just email me and I'll be happy to share in terms of what the opportunity looks like at this point. So our conversion actually happens this year. It has been really my honor to really bring in people from wide networks and wide people from actually all around the world to share the company as well. And because ours is more of a crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding model, everything happens through this platform. And if you're very curious about that platform, you can just check out wefunder.com. And it will give you entire process of how it works. But again, if you have any specific questions regarding the investments, feel free to email me. And I think Prab just put in my email over there as well.
I did. It's in the chat.
So it's just an interesting question. How did you convince people to invest in tea company? It sounds very unconventional to invest.
Oh yeah, of course. Yes, very, very
I should be
unconventional.
answering that question for you, I think, Nish.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I think it would actually be a great question and an answer from Reshma there.
Right. So we as in Stagger invested in Nepal Tea Collective, and we inspired people to invest, bringing investors for Nepal Tea Collective is because of him. Because we looked at the founder, we looked at how enthusiastic he was about tea and his vision, his team, and his hard work and his, resilience towards his business and everything else. That's what made us invest in Nepal Tea Collective.
Absolutely, no question. It was the people, not the product alone. Now, product was awesome. It is amazing, and if you have not tried, I would encourage you to please go ahead, go to his website and try sample the tea that Nish has. They have not won multiple awards for no reason.
Okay.
We have a few minutes, Reshma.
Okay. So have you tried to get into US retails? If so, where are the challenges?
Yes. Yeah. One of the one of the biggest challenge was getting into retail, and we've dabbled with this idea of getting into retail, especially a lot of the big names, Whole Foods, and all of that stuff. Interestingly enough, we have had relationships with majority of these companies, but interestingly enough, tea is not the way we are bringing tea, the premiumized version of the tea itself, is not necessarily widely adopted as of yet, and retail is massively expensive. Massively expensive. So what we want to do, is really be able to create a product that fits the category, and we want to actually invent a category which is actually starting to happen, which is a various premium luxury tea inside Whole Foods. So even today, if you go to Whole Foods, there's going to be two different sections. One is going to be super high-end teas. So we have thought about it, but again, retail is super expensive. One of the things we are proud of is we're supplying our teas in volume to companies that sell to Whole Foods. So, which actually gives us a lot more security, a lot more of volumes that we can actually extract out of the country itself, which allows us to scale through that. But yes, in the next 5 years, you never know. You might be able to find us on Whole Foods.
I do know this, and you can find Nish's tea in another form through Serpa Chai in Costco distributions. So
Whole Foods.
Whole Foods, sorry.
Yes.
So that's amazing. I think we just ran out of time. Nish, thank you so much. Thanks for being here and sharing your journey and story. Thank you, everyone, for spending an hour, a little more than an hour here with us at Staggered, and for your continuous support and enthusiasm. We have put in email. Nish's email is in the chat, and we're always available for any questions you might have. Reshma, any parting thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I know we had, I think, close to 32, 35 people joining today, and they had a lot of questions in the chat, so I will forward that to you, Nish, and, if you want to take that and reply, we have, again, you have our number, our website, our email address, so do reach out for any questions. We will continue to bring these guests and opportunities for you to invest, so, it's up to you, whatever you feel comfortable. And thank you everyone who are here spending their Sunday night with us.
Hello, Rasma Didi. Can I have one quick question, please?
Yeah, sure.
So, hello, Dai. Nice presentation. learned a lot. So I'm in the market right now. So gas station, and I saw a lot of coffees, and then when I look at the tea sector, like it hardly sells. So talking about the retailers in terms of gas stations and as such, so how do you plan to address these kind of markets? Because we sell a lot of coffees, but hardly a few cup of teas. So there, the market does not really know how to consume tea. So have you got any idea about how you're going to explore these markets as well?
Uh, Thank you. Thank you for the question. And actually, again, in the business, you just have to really define who the customer or who the market is. You cannot go in and try to, market and sell to everybody. Once you're trying to sell to everybody, you're basically selling to nobody. So essentially, we're not necessarily looking at, gas stations or Walmart from all of the retailers for mass consumption. We're not necessarily focused on that. Reason being, few different things. Number one is Nepal as a country does not have the capability or does not have the that large enough of a volume to just be able to supply to them. First thing, and then second is that is a very cutthroat market dominated by largest of the large tea companies like Tata's and Lipton's and all of these big Unilever companies, which does not necessarily align with the values that we are trying to bring into the tea consumers. So again, we don't necessarily want to penetrate that market, at least not for the foreseeable future. But again, I really hope that a lot of larger companies take some of our learnings and try to make the tea industry a little better by really being able to, create value for the farmers. Even if, a lot of the tea companies that are making all of these teas for the mass consumption, if they're able to procure it from farms that really are able to work on the social justice part, I think that's a win-win.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much.
All
Okay,
right.
Nish, since we're 5 minutes in, but if you can tell us a little bit about like what you are venturing out to, there's a lot of questions about investments here. And what are your plans for 2025, 2026? Where are you in terms of revenue that probably help them a little more?
Yes. So yeah, 2024 was an amazing milestone. We hit our first $1 million in revenue, which was a big milestone for us. We'd been chasing that milestone for quite a while. But 2025 holds even bigger challenges and opportunities. One of the big opportunity that we have now is where we already have 5 tea bars in Nepal. We're opening 2 more in Nepal itself, and we're hoping to open 1 more in the US, in New York. That is going to be in partnership with the largest coffee chain in Nepal, Himalayan Java. So that's going to be the one thing that we're really looking forward to. Second is we also acquired a company in 2024, which really allows us to expand our products more into health and wellness space. And it is more of a B2B company that we just acquired. So that really has a massive potential to expand our customer base, but at the same time expand our products. So not necessarily just tea as Camellia sinensis tea leaf, but we're expanding product-wise into a lot of different things like ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, you name it. All of the different herbs and spices that have the same exact story that tea does. And the last part is we're really working on our vertical integration. So we have an opportunity to expand and create a complete fulfillment center in Nepal itself, which is really going to vertically integrate our company so that we're able to cut down on our cost and at the same time really be able to expand into other geographies like mostly the UK and Europe. So we're tracking about $1.8 million in sales in 2024. One of the biggest challenges that we had was we were grantees of $1 million funding from the USAID, which sadly is not there anymore. But that really opens up a lot of other avenues for us to really bring our community together, and which is going to be helpful in the next round.
All right, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about your tea tourism? Because I think we missed that as a very interesting part of your venture.
Oh, yes. How could I have missed that, actually? So, again, going back to that Kickstarter part, one of the things, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a person who doesn't think much before taking that first tiny little steps. So when I was doing a Kickstarter campaign, one of the rewards for giving me $5,000 was, I'll take you back to the farm and do a tea tour with you. I had no intention, or I had not even thought a stranger would give me $5,000 and wanted to go to Nepal with me. But apparently 4 people did. And that was the start of our tea tours, which is also a vertical in the business. We generate close to $100,000 through just tea tourism in our business, where we take people from all over the world. We're taking almost 28 people this year in 2025 up to the farms. And what we do is we do an interesting tour where you get to see the farm, not just our farm, but multiple different farms. You get to pluck the teas yourself, and you get to make your own teas from start to finish. So essentially, you'll be with my farmers, plucking those teas, putting it in the basket, rolling the teas, doing all of that stuff, and making your own batch of teas, which really creates an immersive experience that really shows you how difficult it is to actually create these teas and why we shouldn't be taking it for granted. And that those tea tourism has really become a platform for all of the companies, our B2B customers, to come to Nepal, see what the country is like, see the diverse offerings that we have as a country from the lens of tea. And it has been quite an interesting idea, and has really helped a lot of the tea farms as well. So if you want to sign up, we sadly don't have any spot left for 2025. We start on April 1st and go all the way up to June. But we do have spots for 2026. So if you're interested, send me an email and I'll put you on the list to know more.
All right, sounds good. There are still more questions, but I think we're 10 minutes in, so we'll have to take a pause here.
Yeah.
But thank you, Nischal, for joining, and it was a pleasure having you. And thank you, everyone else. I hope you will be joining us in future webinars like you did today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Rob and Reshma. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you, everyone, for attending. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night.